In today's class, we will discuss Eisenstein's theory. The first part of his theory is montage of attractions, which we will discuss in this class. Actually, Eisenstein is introduced to the students of cinema as a great filmmaker. But it is also true that Eisenstein is one of the major theoreticians of film art. He developed his theory in 1920s in Soviet Russia, and also he developed his practices in the same decade in Soviet Union. As theoretician, his writings may be divided into three different parts. First part includes his theoretical writings written in 1923 to 1925, where he developed cinema of attractions theory. The second part includes his writings from 1925 onwards to 1930, which developed the theory of montage of collision. Later, from 1930 onwards to mid 1940s, before the death of Eisenstein, there was a third phase of Eisenstein as theoretician, which was a much complicated state. Here, in today's class, we discuss the first part, that is montage of attractions. Actually, Eisenstein started his career in culture as a theatre artist. He joined Meyerhold's theatre workshop after Bolshevik Revolution in 1917. There, in theatre workshop, Eisenstein was trained in Meyerhold's method of theatre, and there he served Meyerhold as a set designer. In 1923, Eisenstein left Meyerhold's theatre workshop and joined Prolet Cult Theatre. Prolet Cult Theatre is a theatre movement which was introduced in Soviet Russia in post-revolutionary phase, that is after 1917. The main objective of Prolet Cult Theatre was to propagate the ideology of Bolshevik revolution to the workers, peasants and other common peoples of the state. Prolet Cult Theatre was spread particularly in two areas of Soviet Russia. One center was Petrograd, which was renamed after the revolution as Leningrad, and the another center was situated at Moscow. Since 1923, some students of Meyerhold, including Sergei Eisenstein, joined Prolet Cult Theatre's Moscow chapter, and they tried to introduce new formal devices of proletariat theatre in Moscow Art Theatre. Particularly, Eisenstein, associated with Boris Arbatov, introduced the new style of constructivist theatre, which they borrowed from Meyerholdian school of thought. This new theatrical style challenges the realist practices in theatre, which was at that time popularized by Prolet Cult Theatre's Leningrad chapter. Eisenstein and Arbatov constructed a new theatrical style in Moscow chapter of Prolet Cult Theatre, where they developed this style as agitational attractional theatre. Eisenstein wrote the experience of him in Moscow Art Theatre in an article which is later popularly known as Montage of Attractions. This article was published in 1923, and the critics say that this montage of attraction influenced his practice in his films, later films, Strike and Battleship Potemkin. Eisenstein writes that realist theatre is a figurative narrative theatre which is a reactionary theatre, and he introduced forcefully his own method of theatre, that is agitational attractional theatre, as a revolutionary theatre. What was Eisenstein's idea then? What was the idea of agitational attractional theatre? Eisenstein says, and he devised accordingly his own theatrical practice in Moscow Prolet Cult Theatre, that a theatre must be constituted with a chain of attractions. Chain of attractions means a chain of different kind of funny performances. The performances are adapted and taken from the legacy of different popular theatres of Europe. For example, the attractional agitational theatre was much influenced by Italian Commedia dell'arte theatre, which was a theatre in the popular domain and appreciated by the common people in Italy, and then it was spread in different parts of Europe. The agitational attractional theatre was also indebted to French Grand Guignol theatre, which was a theatre to perform the gory violence on the screen. So Eisenstein took this element as attractions and he started constituting his own theatre, which he termed as agitational attractional theatre. The main objective of the agitational attractional theatre was to challenge the realist theatrical practices, which was an elitist practice, and to give birth to a proper proletariat theatre. So Eisenstein developed his theory as the theatre of agitational attraction is a chain of funny performances or attractions which doesn't contribute much to narrative but contribute to the theme of the theatre. Now, Eisenstein believed a kind of eccentric shock which is desired from the every performances, every component of performances of agitational attractional theatre. I quote from Eisenstein what he actually means by agitational attractional theatre. An attraction is any aggressive aspect of theatre, that is, any element of the theatre that subjects the spectator to a sensual or psychological impact, experimentally regulated and mathematically calculated to produce in him certain emotional shocks which, when placed in their proper sequence within the totality of the production, become the means that enable the spectator to perceive the ideological side of what is being demonstrated. Now, in agitational attractional theatre, Eisenstein includes the acrobatic performance from circus. Eisenstein includes the popular songs from music hall tradition. He also includes certain elements of pantomime from commedia dell'arte tradition. Actually, this attractional agitational theatre is a tapestry of different performances which entertain the audience and finally guides the audience towards a proper ideological understanding which is in favor of Bolshevik ideology. Eisenstein practiced his theory in Moscow Proletariat Theatre in a production which is known as Enough Simplicity in Every Wise Man. It is based on a writing of Ostrovsky which was staged by Eisenstein. How he staged this theatre? The narrative of the theatre which Ostrovsky wrote, deals with a funny story. The story is a satirical story which shows the hero of the narrative whose name is Glumov. Glumov is an elite Russian elite whose diary has been stolen by some villains, and the diary in his diary there was written certain kind of love letters. So Glumov became anxious for his social status. If they are published, his social status as an elite will be destroyed. Now the theatre is based on this knave story. The story is not very important here, but important is the thematic contradiction between the elitism and proletarianism in which is manifested, which is displayed in Eisenstein's production. Now, how the theatre progresses from one episode, one act to another act. For example, the first act of the theatre is a monologue of Glumov. The second is, for example, is a acrobatic kind of performance. The third, for example, is a music hall tradition. The fourth is, for example, is a tradition taken from mask and clown show, or there is also a short film, 10 minutes film made by Eisenstein which is known as Glumov's Diary, which was also a part of this theatrical projection, where this is also eventually Eisenstein's first introduction to cinema, this 10 minutes film Glumov's Diary, where the film is a spoof of American gangster film, American detective genre film, to specify. Now, this is the practice of agitational attractional theatre, where Eisenstein believes certain moments produced in the theatre which eccentrically motivate the audience in a certain ideological direction. Eisenstein later developed his agitational theatre into film theory, which he inscribed in his article published in 1925. The title of the article is The Montage of Film Attraction. There, Eisenstein proposed a cinema fit for proletarian class, and now Eisenstein says that he must draw the inspiration from agitational attractional theatre in order to make a new form of cinema which can manifest, which can speak for the proletarian class of post-revolutionary Soviet Russia. Now Eisenstein says it was difficult in theatre because in theatre your every performance is live, and it was not possible to switch over very quickly from one space to another space, from one object to another object, or from one time to another time. Eisenstein says film is the best medium, therefore, for attractional agitational montage, which he later actually framed as montage of film attractions practiced in his first film Strike 1925. Eisenstein says that, for example, a murder. In theatre, the murder is acted out, and you have to show, as a theatre director, the murder in the stage. But Eisenstein says that film medium is much flexible and much plastic. So therefore, in film, a murder should not be performed before the camera. There are different objects, different actions the filmmaker can arrange together, which can show thematically murder. For example, he says a person is stabbed and murdered. How a theatre shows it? A theatre must stage it as a live performance. But in film, Eisenstein says that filmmaker can divide the whole sequence into different parts. For example, a knife, close-up of a knife. Close-up of a knife in the hand of the perpetrator. Close-up of the knife hits the victim and the bloodshed. So Eisenstein says that film is a medium of comparison where you can compare and juxtapose different shots in order to express the theme. Eisenstein projects this attractional montage as opposed to the plot-based cinema, because Eisenstein, according to Eisenstein, plot-based cinema shows the narrative chronology of an event. For example, if a person is gunned down, the narrative cinema, plot-based cinema, shows it as a gun is shot by a person, or the trigger is drawn, bullet is fired, bullet comes out from the barrel of the gun, then the bullet hits the victim, then the victim falls. Eisenstein says, why should a filmmaker use this kind of plot-based, chronologically developed shots? According to Eisenstein, one can also juxtapose between the shots, for example, dragging the trigger, then the bullet fires, the blood, anything, any one shot could be taken by the filmmaker and then juxtaposed with other shot without maintaining the chronological order. This is the basis of Eisenstein's montage of attractions, which he practiced in his films Strike and Battleship Potemkin. So, what Eisenstein says could be concluded as the method of the montage of attractions is the comparison of subjects for thematic effect. But Eisenstein developed his idea of montage of attraction to a political level, because Eisenstein says that montage not only creates a comparison between different or among different shots, but the comparison also must be guided to project certain kind of associations in audience's mind. For example, when a shot shows a crown, it not only shows a crown as object but also shows a royal power. For example, if a shot shows military boots marching past, it not only shows the military boots as objects or the movement of feet, it also show the power of the state. So Eisenstein says that montage of attractions are different kind of shots arranged together or juxtaposed as a scene in order to create certain associations which are related to the ideological plane. And at the end of his article, and he says that every attractional montage has a common goal, that is to agitate the audience towards a particular ideological end. That means to agitate the audience in favor of the Bolshevik revolutionary ideology. We can draw examples of montage of attractions from Eisenstein's film Strike, which he also himself writes in this article. There was a sequence in Strike which shows that a group of workers who are in a strike are being massacred by a group of soldiers. Now, Eisenstein doesn't show the blood or the people are gunned down, but he shows in long shots that a army is chasing and firing at a group of people in mainly in mid shot and long shots, but he cuts in regular interval with a shot of bull slaughter in a slaughterhouse. The huge amount of blood, the blow, the horror and the gory violence is compared with a slaughterhouse. We can watch the sequence from Strike. Now students, let us conclude this lecture here. Eisenstein's theory of montage of attractions guided Soviet cinema to a new dimension in 1920s, we can observe the impact of Eisenstein's theory